Like that?
It was beyond survival mode. And music heals.
Let me play my part.
Check 2, hey.
Like, is that real? Did that happen? Like,
The structure of your brain actually changes.
and do you still feel that every day?
And then it got time for guitars.
Eating disorder, like
I didn't want to die,
tendencies.
but I didn't want to live either.
Helpless little girl.
You gotta go in the hospital.
You feel powerless because the body has a fear reaction.
The opportunity to empower.
No one can take away my power.
I won't take myself out.
Artists that are true like that, those are the ones that tend to create change.
All right, so we're started here. Welcome to Amplified, the official podcast of the Kelly Nicole Foundation. I'm here with a longtime supporter of the foundation and a good friend, Joshua Davis. Thanks for joining me this week.
Hey, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you were actually friends with Kel back in the day, like, I guess, 12, 15 years ago now?
I would say, yeah, at least 15 years ago, if not more, maybe right around 2003, 2002.
Something like that?
Yeah.
So I thought it would be cool to have you on because you've got such an amazing story of coming from such a dark place and overcoming so much and having your passion for music and your support of the foundation. It just seemed like you were one of the first people I wanted to reach out to as we went to put this podcast together. So actually was curious to start out with the way you and I met is pretty unique, I think.
Absolutely unique. Absolutely unique.
That's one word for it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can call it a tragic situation. So we had gotten the word that it was no more treatment. It was time to take her home for hospice, which means it's almost lights out, right? And I said to her best friend, hey, and I just remember texting him, tell everybody, just those two words. And out of the woodwork came a bunch of people. I wanted them to be able to come and say while she was still alive, say to her what she means to them. I wanted it to be an open front door where people could come and share their love for her, and I just was hoping that she could still hear it and feel it and get the sensation that she matters to people. Anyway, that was how the two of us met, and speaking of like overcoming dark times and stuff, so it's weird because you were like 5 weeks sober?
Well, I think it was right around, how long was it?
It was summer 2015.
Yep, it was like 5 weeks sober. I was staying with a friend in between places. I was at that point of, working a program of sobriety, and this opportunity happened to arrive at a time where, as people that may have suffered through addiction or still do know that a lot of times you become very isolated and not in a good way where you are not emotionally or physically available to anybody except to whoever's bringing you your drugs.
Yeah.
And
if you can call that an emotional relationship.
right.
I guess it probably is.
Well, to some extent, I was just very thankful that I was available to see this and to be able to catch it when I did, and to be able to connect with you and with Kelly. Just days before she transitioned.
It's weird because I think of it like if someone had written it, and I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way to you, but I always thought of it as like I had everything and I wanted nothing because without her I didn't care. And you had nothing and you needed everything because you were just rebuilding your life from the beginning.
Absolutely.
So we met. I didn't want to spend a single night in the house without her, so I put it up for sale and gave away almost everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I have like one couch. I have a little bit of furniture to my name now, but I was giving away almost everything. And you were like in service mode, like who can I help? Where can I be positive? And getting through your own darkness, you were turning to, I like to think like the lighter things and who can I help, which I thought was
absolutely
inspiring. And I was like, okay, this guy's kind of cool. I trust him. And he had cool stories about hanging out with Cal back in the day. So talk a little bit about kind of what that time in your life was like. And was it obviously early sobriety has got to be just vicious on your body and your mind and the cravings and everything like that. But there you are helping a complete stranger in honor of this friend who you barely got to watch die.
Well, first, it was an honor to be able to come into a situation like that. Even let it be known, even if I hadn't have been in sobriety, who's to say how things would have aligned? What I mean by that is, many times I think things are more than coincidence. But the places where it was beyond survival mode. It was get, as they say in Shawshank, get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah.
And this was a part of getting busy living. I think I saw an opportunity to be of service. It was never a thought in my mind as like, I have to do something, because part of program of sobriety, at least in my eyes and many others, is service work, being of service for others. One, it takes you out of your own head. Two, it does something good for somebody. And three, in my mind, my number three is it puts out positive energy to all the atoms and neurons out there. So maybe that it could have a trickle-down effect on someone else. Nevertheless, I'll tell you on a personal note, it took my mind off my own issues in a good way.
Really?
I will tell, on a personal note, I'm more of a servicing, in the best of ways, of course. It gave me a chance to be of service to others, but it also gave my mind a break away from my own type of thing, and I could focus all that energy that I would on myself onto someone else, and just channel it and be available. I was pretty much a raw entity when I met you.
And you had lost your best friend within the year, right?
Yeah,
so you were just on the edge.
Yeah, there was quite a few things going on that create weights and weights and weights, and how many weights can one take till they break?
Yeah.
So I thought it was there. It's interesting how one's dark. I think a lot of us tend to compare, or I want to take the pity pacifier out of my mouth and say what's one's darkness compared to another's darkness. It really can't be about that for me. It's more of about I was just really not just to be able to see Kel, but hey, I met you for the first time. The first time we ever spoke was during that trauma, and I had a chance to experience what you were experiencing, and a chance to. I remember walking into the house and you were playing guitar. It's that time to. I don't know if it's time to go into that. But,
anything.
But I also remember when I came over and you played one of your songs for Kel, and you were stomping your foot so loud it was like woke Kel up, and her eyes went bug wild, like, what's going on? I'm like, she's coherent. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
And she felt all your music, and then I played guitar for her, and she smiled. What was her words? I got some gold.
Yeah.
I got some gold.
If you got a smile in the last 3 days, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and
she was out of it.
Well, I kind of knew that she was pretty coherent. She was coherent, and she came in and out because she was on so much medication. But I'm probably going off track here a little bit.
No, it's cool. I remember. I'll just say one more story about that time frame, which was, I don't know if you remember this. You were like, something about we should play sometime or something, because we'd both seen each other play, and you were a drummer.
Yeah.
And everything. And I remember I'm just completely in a daze, right? I'm sitting there, she's laying there in front of me, and I'm just like, this isn't really happening. My mind is just gone. And the words that came out of my mouth, I still can't believe. I said, do you play on a click? And you paused. I asked if you practiced with a fucking metronome while she's laying there. And you paused and you went, God, you are Kelly's wife.
I remember that. Absolutely.
That's funny.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, as the foundation developed, the Kelly Nicole Foundation developed, and this vision started to come together of, I want her music to change other people's lives. Her time is up, but her influence doesn't have to end. If you, I don't know what you had known about her, or if you were surprised by that, or kind of like, okay, that makes sense. But you have been such a strong supporter from the beginning that I wanted you to kind of talk for a minute about just your fierce and loyal support for this, and what drew you to the foundation, and whether you were kind of surprised or not super surprised that we've put this together for her and for other people.
Great question. I often think about the different entities that are out there to get involved in. There's a lot of options out there to choose to who one donates their time, their energy, their money, their physical strength to help if need be. Depends on what it is. And there's many things that I want to give my time to. I found that the Kelly Nicole Foundation, one, it encompasses music.
Yeah.
And music heals. Music is a healer through everything has a frequency, the highest of which is love. Even a rock has a frequency, and music transmits that. It can heal, it can save, it can do many things, and that was the main force, I believe, that kept. Besides you, you're quite the hurricane of force yourself, Teresa.
Great.
You've become a black belt in many things since I've known
thank you.
And let that be known. That's cemented my inspiration to want to be involved with the Kelly Nicole, with the fact that Kelly had endured so much. If one has watched the documentary, she truly was that stallion,
Right.
And was on fumes half the time, trying to get a message out of music. It was almost though she was a conduit, and music was the vessel, and that's how I've always looked at my message with music that I write or choose to play with people. Is that I'm just a vessel, a conduit of a message, of a positivity, of a hope. And this is that forum for that. I believe it's all encompassing, not only for, we can go eating disorder, different kinds of trauma, one of which was mine, and we'll definitely touch on that. But this invites everyone that has remained silent or has not had themselves an opportunity to voice, either silently or openly, about their suffering, and that we can use music as the vessel to maybe bring us together, so we can walk side by side through the darkness to the light, so to speak.
Right. So in the title track, Hate Becoming, the first lyric, I always think about this when I think about us trying to reach out to other survivors. The first line is sitting alone, silent in all the noise. And I just kind of picture, a person's mind just racing in the middle of the night, and the things that they can't shut out, and they're trying to shut it down and go to sleep, and just all that, the mind of PTSD and how it overcomes a person and what they have to go through, as you talk about fighting through the darkness with music, with service, with, giving yourself to other causes and things like that. Do you relate it all to her lyrics? I know you're pretty familiar with the record by now.
There's not only can I relate to a lot of the lyrics, but I can digest a lot of the lyrics into my own situation and or my own subject matter, such as, for example, a person who has an eating disorder sees somebody completely different in the mirror. A lot of times, I should say, not for everybody, but from what I know and from personal experience with my friends, that they see something completely different in the mirror that we all see. So that leads me to believe what might be going on in the process of someone's mind. Mine has been shown to me that how I react emotionally to things, to particular situations. As I sit alone amidst the noise, I digest that in various ways, where whether it's tuning down the chatter that's in my head, the ruminating that goes on sometimes, anxiety, that confusion, which I believe personally is the root of all evil, because how we react to confusion, and that, so to speak, confusion.
Yeah.
As I sit alone in this noise, I'm confused of where to reach out to, who do I turn to, who do I trust. My own, the things I've been taught to believe, I've come out of anything but, so to speak. At least that's what I took away from a lot of the lyrics that are in it, and but most of all, I did digest a lot of it to my own situations, and that is another particular reason I support this album to reach out, because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to it.
Yeah.
Even if it's a different type of disorder, it doesn't. It's all encompasses the human experience.
Yeah, well, trauma's trauma, right? It's
Yeah.
anything that's kind of more than the mind can naturally cope with.
Absolutely.
And just put, okay, this was a bad thing that happened, but I'm going to put it off in this block, and I'm going to continue on and function through my day. And when that functionality comes undone and disintegrates, you kind of have to say, all right, what do I do now? And I think a lot of people don't know the answer to that first question. What do I do now? Do I tell someone? Do I not tell anyone? Do I keep it to myself? Did I do something wrong? Why did this happen? And I just wonder about, for a lot of people, those questions racing through their heads, and hope that, again, with the album and the documentary, that they get a sense of, I didn't do this to myself. I didn't ask for this, but I deserve help.
Well, you hit on so many valid points. It's even got my mind, churning to think of different situations. These kind of things. Did I do something wrong? For some folks, including myself, which I'll touch upon when it's time, is such where I was born an only child. I had absolutely nobody to hit on for questions or for guidance. I had a loving mom, but the situation she was in with parents that were passing and a father that was not supportive whatsoever left me alone to fend for myself mentally. And I think the hardest one for me to come up with, to say out loud, was like, I knew something was wrong, but somebody was actually giving me attention. And I actually was like, do I pretend to like this so at least I have some attention? Somebody, in this insidious, total unhealthy thought process was like, or it was a developing of an unhealthy thought process, was like, am I going to be okay with what just happened so somebody likes me, or so nobody hates me if I tell on them?
Wow.
Or I was actually threatened with bodily harm if I said anything.
You dealt with that if you tell blah blah blah.
Blah, exactly. It was that. But I was also I hear these terms gasoline now, and what somebody says, lighting a gasoline.
Oh, gaslighting.
Yeah, gaslighting. That's it. Well, my interpretation always been that happens a lot within these trauma situations, where I see somebody be made to feel so bad about themselves that maybe this is the best. I see that going. That this is their way of being liked, or you actually, the best way I can say it is the thought process gets very confused.
Yeah, and you talked about the sense of being an only child and feeling alone, and then wondering, like, is this maybe my only chance at any kind of attention, even though it's completely fucked up?
Yeah, that's, yeah. Woo. I have to look at it, some things in different degrees. I've first, where it affected me most is I desensitized myself without forgetting any of the memories.
We said without forgetting?
Forgetting anything. I would make myself and relive it so I didn't forget it.
Oh, wow.
And because I was afraid of blocking things out, because every time I would see a crime show or something where somebody blocked something out, then they would do something very bad and not know it. And so I would get scared that I would become that person where if I blocked it out. So, up until maybe about 10 years ago, and I'm turning 50 this year, I pretty much was reliving it a couple times a week, or just different memories, or, I look at children that were my age, or, I babysit for my friends' children every once in a while, and I'd just look at the innocence and just say, I wonder what that, was that what I was like?
Wow.
And I relive it that way and whatnot.
That's fascinating. You mentioned being sensitive to innocence. Kel was like that. I related to that, and she related to what you just said.
That it made perfect sense for me, and knowing you as well as I have gotten to so far, Teresa, it's you've been placed into situations, and fortunately, there's been some strong people around you, but nevertheless, I thank you for reaching out to me as well.
Oh yeah.
Because
you're one of those people.
You just really took on, it was like somebody who had been, you just inherited the whole stable of well, you're a city kid and you just inherited the whole stable.
The whole ranch.
The whole ranch.
Well, you've heard her play. Can you imagine no one ever hearing this music?
Yeah,
It just wouldn't be right.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things I'll definitely piggyback on was I learned early on that I feel so much. I was born with like this empathy. People talk about being receptors or different things. I don't know if it was put together over the course of what I've been through in life, but I can just feel so much that it become almost too painful. And I just had the emotions, for me personally, I had the emotions of a child in a lot of things because in a lot of ways I'm not sure what to go on with that point. That's a different subject
Well,
matter.
you can go into any point. If I want to cut it, I'll cut it.
Oh, right. Got it. But I did learn that I was a huge receptor and I'd feel everything around me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being an only child and seeing a lot of things in life that just kind of formed my wiring to think something's is this real or will it last? Or, some people say the therapeutic word of abandonment.
Yeah.
And every time I've said even abandonment, as strange as it seems, I felt like I was being weak when I said it. Like how I can handle this. I'm a warrior.
Yeah.
I've made it through abandonment, and I think that that either way, I've really tried to hold on, and music has been one of those things. Kelly, I digress. Kelly, for what she has been through, to be able to remain, that was one sacred thing. It almost reminds me of the plight of the African taken to the United States, and that there would be certain things you would hold on to that if you lost that, you would have broken the spirit entirely. Wow. And I wish I could use a better...
Cultural things?
Yeah, cultural things. There would be certain things within different communities. I guess, I was trying to look for a better example of the plights. But there'd be certain things each culture would hold on to, or each person, so their spirit wouldn't be broken. And music was Kelly's.
And your people, I mean, look at...
Jews.
Yeah, exactly.
The Jewish
Well, I was going to say
folks.
drummers, but
Drummer,
no, I'm just kidding.
us Jewish drummers. Us Jewish drummers, yeah.
No, seriously though, that brings up the stories of people having nothing but one candle in the Holocaust, and they've got that culture. And I just think early on, so while I was setting this up, it was like, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to be fundraising and give to existing organizations? What do we do? Now, 2.5 years into this, the most impact we've had, and when people say the foundation changed my life, it's always they heard the album or they saw the movie. So I'm starting to realize the power of culture.
Absolutely. It certainly has been a beautiful thing to see. I would love for this foundation to be able to affect the masses at one time. If we have to get to everybody one person at a time, then we will.
That's the way to do it. At least they can look me in the eye and say what it means to them,
Absolutely.
So you had talked about a little bit about, should I tell people, should I not tell people? And I read an article about a year ago. It was a study about disclosure and when people tell, whether it's medical, legal, or family, the real responses people get really shocked me and brought me down. I thought it was, and I'd heard a few stories like this in my lifetime about, something happened to so-and-so and they told someone and it went horribly and they never told anyone again. And I thought, okay, that must be a horrible fluke because anyone would be supportive of someone in that situation. And this article said it's the opposite. It said the normal responses to, especially around sexual assault, when someone mentions it to someone, especially it's the first time they're mentioning it, is shame, blame, denial, all these horrible things. And I was like, that's how we're dealing with, no wonder the problem's go on for so long when a person's hung out to dry like that, like you talked about feeling alone. And I was curious if the loneliness was amplified, not to use a pun because the name of our podcast, but if it was exaggerated and deepened into that lonely feeling and the isolation, if you had any bad disclosure experiences, obviously not naming any names, but...
Sure. Well, yes. In that situation, or in those situations, one, I didn't tell anybody until I think I hit 15, and this happened at 7.
Yeah.
And even then, I think it wasn't just, hey, I need to talk about something. I kind of remember the scenario, but I don't remember verbatim how the dynamic went. But it wasn't. It was a shock more, and then it wasn't discussed at all after that. It wasn't a situation like I was in the household where, I mean, I was talking with you earlier about, different stigmas, such as like when back in the 20s, when a girl got pregnant, a lot of families, all of a sudden you didn't see that girl anymore. Where did she go? To a hospital and then to a private school somewhere. Certain taboos or things that were not shared, or it covers many different contexts. But with as far as people's reactions, I really didn't share anything. The only time there was a situation when I was 17 where I ended up with a therapist, and it was, I tried to be as honest as I could, and he asked the question and I answered it. From there, I experienced, it wasn't shown on, it was shown, how do I put this? It wasn't looked upon when the therapist gave, I was involved in the juvenile justice center when I was young. A lot of times you get reports from therapists about the mental condition of this person. If you're going into a group home or into a foster home, or it's sort of like when they do an MMPI or, or for now people call it personality tests, or what is the number G system of your JNP, whatever, however you want to look at it. Either way, it's a process test. So I think I was being processed for some outlandish behavior, and the situation that I haven't personally experienced too much of it because I haven't shared too much of it. When I have, it's usually been, and it wasn't a situation where I had a few drinks in me and a girl or a guy, but we're pretty much a girl, would say that something happened to them for various reasons. They found me comfortable. Quite a few people have mentioned they feel very comfortable to talk with me, and I, by design and by intent, want people to feel comfortable around me because I don't have much time with everybody. So at least that was my thinking. Abandonment, this may never last, so enjoy everything as you can right away. And I wanted to get to know people, so I'd share mine back. But we were drunk. I don't really count that. It wasn't in sobriety as a true way of coming out. But there's been 4 people that I've told to since I'm turning 50. So I can't personally speak upon a bad experience. I've had one. What I can speak about is that the taboos that I've experienced with other people that have gone through it, such as my friends, such as dealing with social workers or police or counselors that are overwhelmed. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here and say they're overwhelmed by the amount of caseloads. And then you have a culture of old school generation. I mean old school meaning from the 20s, people who are my age, 50 years old, and having their grandparents grew up in a society where it wasn't talked about, or what is masculinity or femininity, or a lady doesn't talk about this, or a guy. I'm going to speak because I am a guy, I can really speak more from my male's point of view, is that there are certain things that will make you look upon. Are you homosexual? And at that time, I was fortunate enough, I will say this, to have a parent that raised me not to believe that was wrong.
Yeah.
I was never taught to be with a woman, but I was never taught otherwise. She kind of let me fend for myself on that one. But I had a very good, my mom had a very good moral compass, and for 98% of the time, 95, towards different cultures and races, it was left open that we are all created equal.
Yeah.
So what I am seeing is how people react. if you had grandparents or people old school from the 20s, as I was saying, and that, you know, see no evil, speak no evil, is it representing, does it make your family look bad? Does a parent look bad if their kid gets raped for, you know, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, I start seeing, you know, the things that I read about in rape culture today, and I see I do the flow chart of from well, let's just say the 20s on up, so to speak. But I've looked farther past than that. Yeah, just to answer the question, I'm not personally, but I have seen some pretty bad experiences, or I've seen people react even where it's happened to them and someone else brings it up and they get very defensive. You know, I've seen things like that. I've seen people react, you know, maybe that you shouldn't wear what you wear. I've heard that. I mean, you know, and this is classic stuff that we're seeing in, especially towards women, you know, so to speak.
Yeah.
But for guys, it's, I think it's a big part of why I'm here talking. There is no real template.
Get the music behind the mission. Hate Becoming by Kelly Nicole on iTunes and Spotify.
If you guys haven't checked out the merch table,
join the movement.
buy the album.
Get your Kelly Nicole band merch and donate what you can at kellynicolefoundation.org.
Courage is from Amplified!